Okay, so now that we're moving on to the next step. We have our custom cell set up, our custom image view that we wrote out. And but let's go ahead and just make sure our table view. So we gotta go back to our view controller, make sure our table view still works. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do this real quick. Replace. Oh, right. Table view. Okay, so we still and so we're still accessing our default label, right? But what we want to do is we don't want that label anymore. So here's what we're going to do. Go right here to our table view DQ cell DQ reusable cell with identifier. Okay, we want to change this as and that should be custom as custom cell. Optional because it might not be there. Right? And this is no longer a property. And we should get an error soon, but Xcode is running kind of slow. So let's just do it like this. Right, rebuild, and now let's see. So dot, there we go, name label dot text should equal item. Now, this is our new property, the one that we created in the custom cell. Okay. And so let's go ahead and rebuild. And there we go. Name label. But as you can see right here, this is way too short, right? Our table cells are short. So let's go ahead and increase the height on it. Height for a row, we can do that by using delegate methods. Height for row at. That's it. Return. I'm gonna say 125. And let's see what this looks like. Okay. So this is our image. This is our name. And this is the address. Okay. So now we need to start figuring out how we're going to do our API call or our mocked API call. Okay, so we're going to go to networking service group right here and go to our networking service. You see we have an empty class right here, right? So for the sake of some consistency, I'm going to create a fake networking service. It's not actually making an API call per se, but in the work world, you will have a networking service class. And I feel that the best way in a lot of situations is to have it be a singleton. Why? Because as a singleton, you can only create one instance. That's it. And so you aren't creating multiple instances or using duplicate amounts or multiple amounts of the same resources, right? That one connection that you have, you can't create it anymore. It's that one instance throughout the life of your app, and you access that instance every time you make a connection. And so I think it saves resources when you're doing it for sometimes network connection, sometimes authentication. If you have to load up all of your user information in one fell swoop, it's best to do it using a singleton. If you ever have to access it, you don't have to create another you don't have to create another instance. You always access that one instance, and in the long run, it saves on memory usage. That's my take on it. So let's go ahead and create the singleton. Okay, final class networking service, public static let shared equals networking service. So this is yes, and that's how you create it. Now you want to say privates inits, right? And private inits. That way you can't create an instance of it, right? You always say networking service dot shared, whatever, well, this method that you want to access. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a private property called API string. And that's going to come in that's going to come into use later on, but there's a private let API string is of type string, right? And it equals this. Then we're going to say we're going to create another one, public func fetch data, FET, fetch data, and this is going to be an escape enclosure. And we're going to get back our list of restaurants, right? So we're going to say completion. Okay. At escaping, we return nothing. Everything is access to our completion restaurant list. Okay. Now we're going to do this on a lower queue than our main queue. User interactive. Okay. So let's say dispatch queue dot global quality of service dot user interactive. That's right behind it. Dot async. Give me a second. Okay. And so now we're going to let data of type data equal helper constants, right? Constants dot data. Now, where is this coming from? I'm going to tell you where it's coming from. Helper constants right here. This is the file. Again, if you go into this and look for it, this is where you'll find your hard-coded information. So we aren't going to the internet to get our JSON response. We have it right here. And if you go all the way to the bottom, this is what we use to convert it to of type, excuse me, of type data right here. Using UTF-8, and we explicitly unwrap it. Okay. So yeah, so now we'll go here. So now I'm going to say let parser, P-A-R-S-E-R, let parser equal JSON JSON parser. And this is of type what? Restaurant list, like our model, right? If you go here, why? Because we're passing, we're using generics, right? So let me go back here to parser, right? T decodable. It adheres to decodable protocol. Yeah. So that's how that works. I have this, right? Restaurant list. And now I'm going to say parser dot parse data. Data completion list in, right? Completion, and we pass list. Okay. Again, I've explained closures and especially escaping closures in previous lessons. You need to go and check those videos out. So now that we have this done, let us go back to our view controller. Is that what we're doing? Let's see. Networking service. Okay, so we have our networking service. This is done. So now what we need to do is we're going to have to, so again, we're going to do this in a way that I wouldn't in the real world. Usually I would populate all this through a view model, but I am not going to populate this through a view model because view models, MVVM, is beyond the scope of this. This is just for the demonstration of parsing and lazy image loader. Okay, so let's go up here and we're going to do this. We're not going to use temporary anymore. Done with that, right? Now we will say bar restaurant list is of type an array of restaurants, right? Or we can make it restaurant list, doesn't matter, but it has to be empty, right? And we're going to use computer property of did set just to make this work. So basically when restaurant list is the value is changed in any way, did set is activated. So when this is changed, when this value is changed, I want to reload table view. And table view being reloaded with information has to be done on the main queue. Dispatch queue dot main dot async. Okay, self, you have to say self because you're inside of a closure to access class properties like table view. You have to say self from within a closure. Self dot table view dot reload data. And there we go. So now that we have that, we need to go over here and on view did load, let's go ahead and get our networking service. Okay. We're going to say networking service dot shared, that's singleton, right? Dot fetch data. We're fetching the data. We're going to say list, right? And we're going to say, again, we have to access itself dot restaurant list equals list. Now, this will work, but there is a problem with memory leaks that I'm setting up right now. And this problem will occur here and here, you know, in any place else where I'm passing a value to another object via closure. I'm not going to address that right now. I'm going to address that in the next tutorial that I do where I talk about performance tuning. Okay, performance tuning and memory leaks, solving problems when the main queue is blocked, finding out where and how to fix it, and memory leaks, fixing memory leak issues. And I did have another tutorial that discussed that, but anyway. So now we're here. We're down here, and of course, this is wrong, right? This has to be restaurant list down here. So it's restaurant list dot count, right? And then this is not correct. This has to be, let's see, custom cell. And so I'm not gonna do it this way. Here's how I'm going to do it. Check this out. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to name this restaurant list, right? And we're going to do it this way. Let's go to our custom cell. Okay. I'm going to create another class property. Okay. And this will reduce the code in our view controller. And this is stuff that you can use with MVVM. But we're not doing MVVM now. Okay. So we're going to custom cell. Right. And we're going to say this var restaurant. Yes. Var restaurant is of type restaurant optional. Why do we want it to be optional? Because we don't want to set the value. But if you, and we don't want, if you ever create an instance, you're going to have to reset the value. It's going to require, unless you make a property optional. Okay. So that's how I avoid making the property optional. I don't want to set a default value. So now here, we'll say did sets. So now whenever this value gets changed, what takes place in did set will happen automatically, right? And so what I want this, when this gets changed, I'm going to say name label custom. Okay, well, I'm going to say name label dot text, name label dot text is equal to restaurant dot name, right? Address label dot text is equal to restaurant dot address. And now we're going to do probably the most complicated one, which is custom image view dot load image, right? And we're going to say restaurant dot image URL string, right? That's what we're passing to it. And of course, this needs to be unwrapped, right? That needs to be unwrapped explicitly. Again, I have tutorials about optionals, difference between bang operator and the question mark. And then let's go ahead and do a few other things. Custom image view. I want to set the custom image view. These are a few aesthetic things. Dot layer, dot mask to bounds equals true. Custom image view dot layer dot corner radius equals 7. Okay. So now when I go back to my view controller, I can say cell dot restaurant equals item. If you really want to make this make sense, let's do it like this. Cell dot restaurant equals restaurant. And we get restaurant from this, the restaurant list. But at the index path.row, it's just one restaurant. So now, done a lot of work. Let's go ahead and run it and see what we need to fix. Okay. And everything seems to work almost on point. So, and now our images have loaded. But how do we know for a fact that this is working? I mean, we could have used the old method of loading, right? So let's do something. Okay, so one thing I want to do is, so you see how some of these images are kind of stretched, right? There is content mode. You can fix that by going to content mode, right? But the thing is, we also use CG size. So let me go here. Change it here in content mode, but I have this in center. Okay, so let me go here, here, content mode. This is aspect fit, right? You can also change it to something aspect fill, but I'm gonna say center. Why? Because what I did in my custom image view, I resized the image, right? The height and the width. So the original height and width, if you go back here, is what? 90, right? So I made this in my custom image view, sorry, 80/80. So I want the image to kind of be dead center inside of this, right? So let's see if this works. Okay. And it does. All right, now I got to show you something else. Now, I will say this as well. Dispatch queue, this is maybe blocked on the main queue for 2 seconds, right? Because I intentionally have that so that you can kind of see everything load, right? However, if I take this and I remove async after, let's make it async. Watch what happens. Hold up, let's see what's going on. Ambiguous use dispatch queue.main.async. Okay. Okay, you see how fast it loaded? Now, here's another thing. Let's check something out. Here's the, so you can understand the advantage, right? Image cache. Let's say this right here. I'm gonna say print. The image is loaded from cache, right? Because that's where this image is coming from. The image is loaded from cache. Okay. And that's where it's loaded from cache. This image is loaded from the download right here. Print. Okay. This image is loaded from the download. Okay, so as you see, when I did this, all the images loaded from the download. As I scroll more, they're loaded from the download. You see that? They're loaded from the download and they came pretty damn fast. Now, when I go back up, now they aren't loaded from the down. They're coming straight out of the cache. Right? So that this is faster the more you use it. See that? So, yeah, that's what this is. So, hope you guys understand lazy image loader and lazy var and why it's being used and why it's necessary. And if you're having trouble following, download the projects, the partially completed project and the fully completed project. Come back and watch the video and walk through it. Yeah, and that's about it. So on to the next.